So they signed him for $3 million on a one-year deal this summer after getting bought out in Nashville. And everyone's like, okay, this is a nice little reclamation project. This guy, if he wants to get paid, someone's going to pay him some good money. Yep. In 72 games, 24 goals, 38 assists, 62 points, and a plus 15. Coming off of last year in Nashville, man, what a turnaround. I mean, last year in Nashville, he had 56 points in 71 games. Not too bad, not too shabby, but only a plus 4. And man, he is just lighting it up. And he's been the exact boost they needed for that second line. And especially now getting Stankoven up there too. Man, this Stars team is deep. Like, they are deep at forward. They are deep on their defense. Their goaltending, both Wedgwood and Ottinger, are playoff performers. Are we underrating the Stars? Like, I know they've already clinched and they're leading the league in points, but are not enough people talking about these guys? Like, they were only a couple games away from another Cup Finals berth last year, if it wasn't for Vegas, and Vegas was just on a whole different level. So gotta keep an eye closer to. We gotta keep an eye on this Stars team because they might cause some trouble.
Yep. No, like, I think it's weird to say that, like you're saying, like, the team with the most points in the league is underrated, but, like, yeah, I think a lot of people are low-key sleeping on them just compared to, like, Colorado and New York and Carolina and stuff. I think I'm guilty of it as well, where you just kind of you take the big sexy teams first, and then you're like, oh no, the big teams will take it. But I think the Stars could definitely sneak in and cause a lot of big teams to sweat. I think I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs.
No, and I mean, as of right now, I think they play the Kings in round 1. I don't think the Kings want to see him in round 1.
Yeah, to be fair, like, I don't think the Kings want to see anyone in round 1. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
They're kind of fucked.
With the Kings, for me, they need to prove me wrong in terms of I don't see them, like, it's just year after year they got smoked by Edmonton, and you know what, last year they looked better than their match in the year prior. I'll give them that. But it was still just outclassed. Like, and I just don't see this Kings team doing anything. If they can go ahead and win a round and upset a team, then maybe they're about to go on another repeat of a certain 2012 run. But yeah, I don't think the Kings want to meet anyone, especially not the Dallas Stars playing like this. The Dallas Stars play playoff hockey. I mean, that's Peter DeBoer hockey. It's boring sometimes, but they can also put up a shit ton of goals, and they grind you when they need to. And man, I'm just looking at this Western Conference, and it is like every single matchup is a bloodbath. Like, you have Edmonton and Vegas in the first round right now, Vancouver and Nashville, Colorado and Winnipeg. Bloody series.
Yeah, I think, man, I'm curious where that's gonna go. Like, because I honestly, man, brackets this year are going to be tough because I honestly don't know which way I'm leaning. Like, I've been thinking about it, and a lot of these matchup I just don't know. Like, I'm pretty confident in Colorado against Winnipeg. I'm pretty confident that Colorado's going to take that.
I agree.
And probably LA versus anybody. I think anybody else.
Yeah, I will take anyone.
Not to throw shade on the Kings, but I think, like you were saying, like, I just think it's kind of the same shit every year, where they look really good. They're 6-4-0 in their last 10, not bad. They looking pretty nice, and then they get blown out by the Oilers. So it's like, have they learned? Like, I think, like, I can't with confidence say that they're gonna make a big run or gonna do anything huge in the playoffs when they, like, the Oilers alone have their number on speed dial, and the Oilers aren't even the best team in the league. Like, they're not even, like, they're good. They're a great team, but they're not, like, they're no, like, Carolina or no Dallas or Colorado.
You know, some teams just own each other in the playoffs. Like, the Oilers own the Flames, the Oilers own the Kings, the Canes own the Devils, the Pens for the longest time owned the Caps. Boston owns
Colorado
the Leafs.
owns the Oilers. Like, it happens.
Yeah, it's just some teams they just match up so well. They just have their numbers, and there's nothing you can do. It's going to be really hard to make a bracket this year. Mine's going to be coming in very last minute because
Me too.
there's a lot of teams. All of these teams in playoff spots, say outside of maybe Winnipeg, and we can get into that, in Philly, all of these teams are playing so damn well, and that's
Yeah.
kind of unheard of. Like most time, I think back to last year, like there weren't this many teams playing this good going into the playoffs that are in a playoff spot. Like this is going to be a year for the bloodbaths.
Yeah.
Um,
You could honestly, I could listen and I could honestly see people making an argument for any team in the playoffs to make a run. Like I really could.
yeah,
Like I
even the
think like
Kings, even though we just shit
yeah.
on them, it's
Yeah.
any team in a playoff spot right now. There is an argument to be made on here's how they could beat everyone on their path to the cup,
Yeah.
and I don't think you could refute it. But speaking of, we're almost. I think we have what 2 weeks till the end of the regular season.
Hmm.
2 or 3, I can't remember. I think playoffs start on April the 20th. So we have
Yeah,
just over
it's
2 weeks.
clinching time.
Yeah. It's clinching time. But for all the teams that are clinching, who's panicking right now? I mean, there are some teams that I can think of off the top of my head that
Yeah.
are either sweating because they're not where they wanted to be or sweating because they're going into the playoffs limp. I'm curious, what do you think in terms of who's panicking right now?
Um well, honestly, the first team that comes to mind just off the top of my head that is going to probably make the playoffs, but I would be concerned about is Vegas. They're injured to hell and back. They have like they've just been really shaky recently, losing to teams they should easily have. They've been kind of getting it together recently, but just Exhibit A. Look at their injuries list. Alex Petrangelo, Thomas Hurdle, Mark Stone, and Aiden Hill are all hurt.
Yeah.
Hill and Petrangelo are day to day, so they could come back any minute here. But Hurdle and Stone alone, that's tough. And I think, from what last I heard at least, Stone might be out for a little while here.
There's a chance he doesn't even come back for the playoffs.
For sure. Yeah, like yeah, no, they're rough right now. Their injuries are pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I would say it's weird to say because they still have a lot of talent on the roster. Like they still got Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev, Stevenson's playing well, Carlson's playing great. Their defense looks good with Hannafin and Theodore McNabb and stuff like that. I just don't know, man. Like they just have. I just have my concerns.
Yeah.
Like I think I would be concerned as a Vegas fan going in.
It's they've pulled it together as of recent. They've gone on a bit of a winning streak. In thanks largely to Logan Thompson, who has really solidified the net. Good old Calgary boy.
Two Calgary boys, Aiden Hill and
Yeah,
their goalie
two two Buffs legends. So
exactly.
great tandem there. Thompson before Hill came in last year. I mean, Thompson was seen as the goalie of the future, and I still think he is. And man, he is since coming back from injury, he has looked way better. He has looked like a solid piece in net. I know they're still probably concerned about their goaltending depth, but man, I mean, you can go into round one of the playoffs with Thompson starting, and then when Hill gets healthy, rotate, and that's a scary core. And I know Hurdle's supposed to come back before the end of the regular season, which should help, but at the same time, it could throw off chemistry, and then you're a little wonky going into the playoffs. And I'd say, like, if we're looking at it right now, if they're playing Edmonton in round one, this is probably Edmonton's best chance to beat them. Like this is easily the worst team the Knights have had in years in terms of just cohesion and just overall health.
Yeah.
And if there's one time to take advantage of it, it would be now. I would say another panic team definitely, as alluded to before, is Winnipeg. They look flat right now. And the big concern for me is they've been just bleeding goals from Brossoit and Hellebuck. And at one point, I believe that tandem was number one in the league in terms of goals against, for how well they were playing. And it's just the past few games they've been getting mopped. And I know they cleaned it up a little bit in the Edmonton game, still lost, but man, this Winnipeg team goes flat into the playoffs again. I feel bad for the Winnipeg fans who are going to have to deal with another first round exit.
Yeah, yeah. Like I had strong opinions on the Winnipeg Jets for the longest time, where I was like, "Fuck the Jets." I think it's because they swept the Oilers few like back in the bubble.
Yep, 4-0. I remember that.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. And like I've matured since then. I've gotten over my butt hurtness. But honestly, like I think, yeah, I think you're right. Where this is not how the team should be playing this close to the playoffs, especially with Nashville on their heels. And like nipping at that spot. Like I think, man, it's gonna be tough. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10. Nashville's 8-1-1 in their last 10. It's just night and day. I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm curious. Do you guys think they just like got off to a hot start and have been riding that momentum, and then now it's just slowly fading, or?
I think so. And it was a similar story last year. I mean, I think they were first in the league about halfway through the season. And then they just fell off a cliff. They barely they were like 1 point ahead of the Flames to get into the playoffs. Like they just barely scraped in. This year it seemed different. All of a sudden we're seeing, it took a little while longer to happen, but that same old Jets is coming out. And I think you can really pin it to Gabe Vilardi getting injured, because there's no coincidence that as soon as Vilardi gets injured, this team just craters. And I know Kyle Connor was out for a bit, but when Vilardi was healthy this year, I think he had 30 points in 31 games. Like what a masterful trade by the Jets, the Dubois trade. And losing Vilardi showed how much this team is already relying on him. If he can get fully healthy going into playoff time, that'll be huge, because I would argue he's their biggest X factor right now. Like, I know they have Scheifele, Connor, all those guys, but man, Gabe Vilardi's been the difference maker this year. If they get him back, and I think he is playing right now, but I mean, he's probably not 100%.
Yeah, he's supposed to make his return tonight against Ottawa.
Yeah, so if they can get him up to speed and he's healthy going into playoff time, that could be huge. But if not, I don't know.
Like I think again, it's similar story where it's kind of just like the same old shit with the Jets. Like I feel like every year, people are like, don't sleep on the Jets, and then I pay attention to what the Jets are doing, and then I'm like, why shouldn't I sleep on the Jets exactly? Like it's weird because they don't have a bad roster. Like looking at it, like they have some good pieces on the defense with like Morrissey, Demelo, Dylan, even Logan Stanley. I've been noticing is like he's a good, strong like gooner.
He's been playing better.
He's a good. He won't get you a ton of goals, but he's like a good, tough presence on the defense that like forwards don't want to mess with. Like forwards don't want to.
Yeah. They have an underrated decor.
They do.
Like,
really do.
Josh Morrissey has been really good this year. I would know. I have him in my other fantasy league. Yeah. And man, this guy, like, I'll check my phone and it'll be like Josh Morrissey, 3 assists. Mm-hmm. Oh, Josh Morrissey, 2 goals, 1 assist. 1 goal, 2 assists. Like, there's been very few games where he hasn't been on the score sheet. Mm-hmm. And this is like, he's been their power play 1 kind of top D man for years now, but he has just taken that next step, which you want to see. Mm-hmm. And I like Winnipeg's roster, like especially post Monahan and Toffoli trades. I really like their roster. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I want to see them make that push. I really do, because if they can make that push, I'm rooting for Toffoli and Monahan, obviously, but. Man, if they can make that push, and if Hellebuck can play like we know he can, oh man, this team could be a heartbreaker. They could go on like a Florida type run.
Yeah, no, they totally could. Like, like kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. You can make a case for anyone. I think you can make the case for the Jets. I just think they're there are issues that, like, if I'm the coach or I think even manager, like if I'm the GM right now, I'm just hopping in and being like, oh, like, what's going on, boys? Like, get them all down for a fucking therapy session, or like get a beer, get a case of beer and just like talk it out, or I don't know what's bothering them, like, because I know
it's
Hellbuck was on 32 Thoughts not too long ago saying that he's more confident in the Jets this year than he's ever been. And he said that's mostly just because of the decor in front of him, the forwards in front of him, and I believe him. I think he is confident, but I wonder, because it's kind of funny. He did that. I think Elliot Friedman was joking that he's never going to come back on the show again because he did that interview, and then the Jets started wavering, like they started losing a bunch. So like maybe, I don't know, maybe something happened between now and then. I don't know, but it's interesting to see.
Yeah, it's this is definitely the best Jets team that they've had since the 2018 conference finals run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this team has the coaching and the roster and the experience to go far.
Yeah.
It's just they all need to click. Everyone, like, they need to get in playoff mode. And I mean, to be fair, playoff Monahan and playoff Toffoli are two dogs. Mm-hmm. And they were missing that scoring last year. It also didn't help that their defense was bleeding goals, but whatever. Mm-hmm. I like, if this Jets team, if they win in the first round, say against Colorado, that's all I need to see to know, okay, they're on a run. Yep. Like, this is their run, especially if Hellebuck plays really well. Mm-hmm. If the goaltending tandem can play really well, because Brossoit, when he's on, I mean, that is a fantastic duo. Mm-hmm. I like this Jets. I want to like this Jets team more than I do, is what I'm trying to say. And I think it would be great for their market to go on a run with this good of a team. And hopefully Gabe Velarde helps there. I was going to say the other team that is sputtering a bit that I would be concerned about is definitely the Panthers. Yeah. They're looking shaky right now. And they played an okay game against the Islanders the other night. They still came away with the loss. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Their scoring is drying up. And you got to... And Tkachuk, I think he's still injured. Speaking as a fantasy manager.
Looks like Tkachuk is back, but I would imagine he's still dealing with stuff.
I think he's battling. And I think bigger concern is Bobrovsky has not been himself as of recent.
They've been relying a lot more on Stolarz. Which
and Stolarz has been playing really well.
Yeah, he was really good the other night. I can almost forgive their loss against the Islanders because, like, I kind of get it. The Islanders really needed that win more than Panthers did. Like, they already clinched. And especially how fragile their roster is, like how injury prone a lot of those guys are. I would understand why they're like, okay, maybe don't like give it your. Not that I'm saying they didn't give their 100%. I'm just saying, like, maybe don't like go that extra mile to squeak out a win when you don't really realistically need to. Like, especially with Tkachuk just coming off injury. And so is like fucking Barkov and Ekblad, Forsling, I think, as well. Like, a lot of, they're so hurt. That's the main problem. I think their biggest hurdle they're gonna have to clear here going into the postseason is just how hurt they are. And just how sore a lot of those guys are right now. Because their team, like when they made the playoff or the finals last year, and then they announced that Tkachuk wasn't playing in one of the last games, I straight up thought he might be dead. Like, I straight up thought he was like, there's no way, like, this has to be something deadly serious. Like, a doctor's like restraining him down to not go and play, because like Tkachuk is the kind of guy that, especially that's the first time he's ever made the finals, you would have to, I cannot imagine how much convincing that took to get him to not play.
Yeah, he was playing with a broken sternum. Like, Brady had to help him get out of bed and tie his skates. And that just shows, like, man, I miss Matthew Tkachuk. That guy, he's dedicated. When he has discipline And when you allow him to play his game and you don't restrict him and you tell him, you go out there, you score, you fight, you do whatever you want, but play with heart and play hard. I mean, man, Paul Maurice is the perfect coach for this guy. Like, talk about a coach where he says, that's my guy. He's going to go do whatever he wants, and he's going to win us games. Yeah. And my issue with how he was treated in Calgary is it never felt like Daryl Sutter or Bill Peters or Jeff Ward or any of our previous coaches wanted to give him that role and be like, you are the guy. Like, you go be the game breaker.
And just said, fuck it, and just made him captain.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
Like, I don't know what their big word. I get that he's like he's kind of a Brad Marchand character, but like even Brad Marchand's a great captain.
But he's gotten better. Yeah, and that's the thing is you've seen like Tkachuk's behavior in Florida is night and day. Like he is so much more disciplined. Like he's still a little shit, and he's always going to be. But he's more like the Brad Marchand where he's like you get pissed off because he's so good, and then he does something dumb and pisses you off. Yeah. Like my issue, like oh man, that 2022 run. He breaks. I don't think he broke his hand. I think he broke a knuckle though. Yeah. In the fight he had, I think it was against Delangere in the first round. Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where I'm like, man, like it just feels like Coach Sutter is holding him back because he doesn't fully trust him. And all of a sudden, Paul Maurice says, "Hey, you're my guy. I trust you." I mean, I think vividly about that goal. To win Game 4 and sweep Carolina, where he scored in the final seconds and hit the Patty Kane heartbreaker. Yep. Like that image is burned into my mind of this guy is a clutch playoff hero. Yep.
Yeah, no.
And so, yeah, this Panthers team, they're beat up. Makes sense. Post-Cup final run, everyone's going to be beat up. But I just don't know. I think next year is their year. I think this year they need rest more than anything.
Yeah, no, they need a good old ice bath. Pop a few Tylenol. Like I think there's definitely some issues there, just league wide with guys feeling the need to have to play with lingering injuries. So I think it is good that he sat out. I don't think that he should have gone out and played with whatever he was dealing with. I can't exactly remember what it was.
The broken sternum.
The broken sternum, right? Yeah, like that's insane. Like no way in hell he should be playing on that. So. And at that point, I think he's smart enough to understand that like if you have to have help from your brother just to get out of bed, like you're gonna be more, even at his skill level, you're gonna be more of a liability on that team than if you just like sat out and then they filled up the roster with someone healthy. Like I like at that point I would, even if you're McDavid, like I would be like maybe just sit this one out and then we'll figure something out. Yeah, like I think my last team that I'm a fan of, I'm kind of panicking it's kind of the polar opposite of the Florida Panthers. The Ottawa Senators, they strike me as Calgary but worse because they are terrible at drafting. They are historically bad at it, and even if they got good draft picks, they don't really do anything. Like so like even if they got good draft picks, they wouldn't pick the right guys. But now they've been so middle of the pack, and they've been better this season. I think they're doing more losing this season. I think they're doing the proper amount of losing this season. But even now, like they're going on a random run. They're on a 4-game win streak. Not too shabby. Beating the likes of like New Jersey and Edmonton in that run. So like I think they definitely have potential. But I honestly I just look at this team and I'm like, man, the future is bleak right now.
You can thank former GM Pierre Dorian for that one. The way he screwed, and it goes back to previous ownership with Eugene Melnyk and with Coach DJ Smith. Like the way this previous regime screwed the Ottawa Senators is going to be a case study in the future. They set this franchise back years. This Ottawa team, they have a talented forward roster. Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, Josh Norris when he's healthy, Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, Jake Chikrin, like their goaltending not good.
No.
Pierre Dorian, thank you for the Corpusalo signing. What an awful contract. And if I feel bad for Sens fans because I think the one good thing you can take away from this year is with Jacques Martin coming in as the interim head coach. Yeah, they're losing, but he's beating the right tendencies into them in terms of we're going to go through this learning process and we're going to iron out all these bad kinks that DJ Smith set into you for years. And the biggest tragedy with the Sens is that they waited too long to fire DJ Smith. Like, DJ Smith seems like a great guy, a great developmental coach. But developmental coaches aren't necessarily the guys who can bring you to the next level. And most rebuilds aren't. Like, think about all the past rebuilds over the past 10 years, let's say. How many coaches started a rebuild and was there for the end of it? Like, basically none of them.
Yeah, they're cannon fodder usually.
Yeah, so, man, I feel bad for the Sens, but I think this is the growing pains that they need.
Yeah.
They're going to get an established head coach next year. I like Steve Stales, their GM. Michael Andlauer seems like a good new owner. They're going to get a new building. They're going to make some roster changes. But, pain.
Yeah, like it's a factory of sadness, frankly, the Ottawa Senators. Like there's that historic story that I still find really funny that they missed out on their top draft pick in one of the years previous because they forgot to charge their laptop. It's a comedy of errors.
What are you looking for?
It's a comedy of errors.
Behind the bin.
The comedy of errors were a hockey team, quite frankly, and I think, just kind of looking at I don't mean to shame any player. I think every player is doing their best, but if you kind of just look at
the side of the couch
decor, all they really have is Jacob Chikrin, and Jake Sanderson can be good on occasion. He can definitely fill in a role, but
he's a young guy.
He's young, he's learning, but I don't know how much he's gonna learn on this team, because Jacob Chikrin, from what I saw, this might be my Edmonton bias, but from what I saw from Jacob Chikrin, I think he really wanted to go to Edmonton over Ottawa, I would say. I think he just kind of maybe something fell through with Edmonton. I think Edmonton wasn't willing to pay the price that they were asking for. Even though he could win for cheap.
Yeah. I think it was that, and he has family ties in Ottawa. His grandparents live in Ottawa. So, but I also do know, and I think this was widely reported on, is that the Oilers were not willing to pay the same price because the Sens paid the 12th overall pick and then a second round pick in the following year that could upgrade into a first round pick should they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, I still think the Oilers should have done that. If the Coyotes were asking me for a first and even a future first for Jacob Chikrin in a heartbeat, especially on that contract, in a heartbeat, I would have done that.
Yeah, especially with God, how fucking good would the Oilers defense be with Chikrin on it?
Fantastic. He's a great two-way. He's great he's great offensively and he's great defensively, and I think he's underrated in that regard. That would have been an incredible pickup. Yeah, and
I think do that and then trade CC for picks at the trade deadline, and you're cooking, man. You are. Yeah, and I don't mean to speak for Chikrin. I don't know what's going on in his head. You're probably right with the family ties thing. I just think maybe it's just my Oilers fan bias coming out that everyone wants to be an Edmonton Oiler.
But well, it certainly would have been a better situation in terms of playoffs. But you know what? When he came over to the Sens, if you think about it, they were on the upswing. Mm-hmm. They had traded for Alex DeBrincat at the previous draft. Yeah. They were looking like they should be better. They finished with a better record than they had been progressively climbing. Mm-hmm. They trade for Chikrin, and all of a sudden it's okay, our roster's kind of set. We could do this. But they had DJ Smith as their coach and Pierre Dorian as their GM, and it was just never going to work.
Yeah.
I will say one thing about the young players is that I think if they get a coach like Craig Berube or Mike Sullivan, who we've mentioned before, or even Jay Woodcroft, you're going to watch this team just fly. They have the right pieces. They just need the right the right guy to coach them through it. And it wouldn't also shock me if they made a huge roster move this offseason. Like there's rumors, I know there's rumors around Josh Norris and Thomas Chabot and even Drake Batherson, which it wouldn't shock me if one of those guys was moved. But I think this Ottawa team is prepped to take a step should everything fall into place. Like I like the roster, put the right guy in at head coach, proven winner. Like again, like I think immediately Craig Berube, who was fired out of St. Louis. Like that's a match made in heaven. And I think he's from the Ottawa area, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be an even better homecoming. Yeah, just tragic. One last thing before we go, and we alluded to it earlier, is Zach Hyman has a rich dad. Let's talk about that. Did you watch the Berkshire video? I hope not. I hope you got paraphrased.
That was the dude that was like, it was the dude that was like outside, and he was saying since he has a rich dad, it doesn't count or some dumb shit. I didn't.
And that's where
clip,
it all came from.
Yeah. That's a moronic take to me.
It is, and I would urge anyone to not watch that clip and don't give him clicks, because this guy.
Yeah. Like I've never seen a guy get ratioed that hard on Twitter
by
a long
everyone.
time. Yeah, like not even just
everyone.
Oilers fans. Like it was everybody. Like
it was like Friedman was tweeting about it. The Flames broadcasters were joking about it. Like the whole internet. You somehow united 32 fan bases who hate one another against this single guy. Yeah, and you know what's funny? Like. You can boil down the clip. I think I understand what he was probably trying to say, but it's clear he didn't know how to articulate it and was just kind of an idiot. Like, there is a conversation to be had, and this is just fact, that hockey is an elitist sport. Like, you need a lot to succeed in the NHL. You need a lot of money. Like, I think I was reading a quote from an article the other day that Paul Marner estimates that he spent about $400,000 on equipment for Mitch throughout all of his junior years up into him getting drafted.
The barrier for entry,
which is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so I think there's a conversation to be had there in terms of, hey, like, hockey is an elitist sport. Like if Berkshire in his video came out and said, hey, big ups to Zach Hyman for scoring 50. I like seeing guys score 50. I just wish we could see more people succeed and get these opportunities. I don't think anyone would have had a problem. I think everyone would have said, yeah, like, we like hockey. We want to see more people. When more goals are scored, the league is better. Like, it's just a fact. And also, Zach Hyman happens to be a really good dude, too. Yeah. So it couldn't happen to a better guy. So I think if that's what he said, there wouldn't have been an issue. But the issue is that he didn't say that. All he said was, the only reason he scored 50 was because his dad was rich. Like, yes, did Zach Hyman have a better opportunity than some kids because his dad was rich? Of course. But basically 99% of the NHL is in that same position. Now, I do know that Zach Hyman's dad at one point owned 90 different teams in the GTHL, and they had to change rules around it. Yeah. But Zach Hyman was a 4th-round draft pick, and he really only got his kind of flowers when Mike Babcock decided, hey, I really like this guy on our Leafs roster. I want to give him more ice time. Like, he still had to work his ass off to get where he is now. Yeah. And I look at this 50-goal season and I say, man, he's the perfect guy to play with McDavid. Like, just the perfect, not even just McDavid. Like, he plays with Drya a bunch too, I know. And he's just the perfect guy to take a pass. Like, McDavid and Draisaitl can make those passes that only guys like Nikita Kucherov can take and roof. Zach Hyman's the perfect guy to roof those passes. And it made my blood boil a little bit. The Berkshire discourse.
Yeah, like that. The whole, like, oh, he only gets 50 because he stands in front of the net and plays with McDavid. That's a take you have if you have never played hockey or understand how how difficult playing hockey is. Like playing with a guy like McDavid or Austin Matthews is a skill in of itself. If it wasn't skill and it was literally so easy that you just stand in front of the net and you will get 50 goals, why doesn't Janmark have 50 goals? Why doesn't Derek Ryan have 50 goals? Why
didn't Milan Lucic score 50?
Yeah, why didn't Milan Lucic score 50? Like,
why didn't you look at any plug? Zach Cassian, why didn't he score 50?
yeah.
You don't just, it doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through Twitter right now, which is already my first mistake. But like, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I just kind of looked up Zach Hyman and looked at the top posts. Look at, like, some of these people are just talking to hear themselves talk. I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but look at this one. It's like every single goal Zach Hyman scored, and it's just a compilation of all the goals he scored. Every single goal that's purely unethical. What? What do you mean unethical? What does that mean?
The thing is that, like, yes, are 99% of his goals this season from in and around the net? Sure. But he still had to roof it. He still had to get the pass. And a lot of them are like him and McDavid racing down the ice.
Yes.
And he accepts, McDavid passes it through like 3 guys. And Zach Hyman, and like, I think people underrate how hard NHL passes are. Like, there's a clip one time of Nikita Kucherov talking about how, like, when he first got into the NHL, he was receiving passes and he thought his hands were going to break because they were so damn hard. Especially and now you look at when Kucherov passes. Yeah, it's again, if every guy could do this, there would have been multiple, like, Zach Hyman, again, it goes back to he's just the right guy in the right scenario at the right time.
And it takes an incredible amount of hockey knowledge and hockey IQ 100%. To put yourself in those spots. Like, that's what I don't understand is, like, guys just think, like, oh, I'm just going to stand in front of the net the whole time. But, like, if you actually watch them, like, they're either going down on a rush. Yeah, there's a lot where he's standing in front of the net and just taps it in. Like, sure. But, like, goals are goals, man. And, like, 50 goals is an accomplishment. I can't wrap my brain around, like, someone who sees a guy who got drafted in the second round hitting 50... Fourth round, sorry. Even worse. Like he got drafted in the 4th round. No one ever heard of... Like, honestly, I'm going to be honest. I never heard of him until he signed with the Oilers. And, like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Good depth signing. And, like, I can't imagine getting that mad about a guy who got drafted late on, like, underdog story and then hit 50 goals. I can't imagine just getting mad at that. Just because his dad is rich? Like, that's what I don't understand. And, like... It's such a bizarre take. And, like, I don't know. Like, I just think people will want to just get mad to get mad. And, like, they see rich and rich bad. And whatever, man. Like, I think you just need to realize, like, every NHL player, the poorest NHL player is, like, upper middle class. Like, it's... Just with the barrier of entry, like... Look at any player in the league, and you could probably tie them to, like, someone who in their family who's, like, rich as hell.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, whatever. I wish this conversation was used to talk about how we want to make hockey more inclusive for people who can't afford to, because I think the sport will only get better, and that's really the way it'll grow more, is getting more people into the game. And it's not like soccer or football or basketball where you just need a piece or two. Like, you just need a soccer ball, or you just need a basketball, or you just need a football and some friends. Like, those sports are so easy to get into. I wish this conversation was about how we're talking about making hockey better, but instead it's about, Zach Hyman, it's only because of his rich dad. Like, and I'm a Flames fan saying this. Yeah. Like, I'm and there's some people who are like, oh, you can't praise the Oilers, like, fuck you. Like, no, I just like good hockey.
No, exactly.
And I gotta give kudos to a guy who goes and pots 50 goals in this league, and who, when he's playing against elite competition, like, I just wish there was more of that. I wish every team could have a 50 goal scorer. I wish my Flames team could have a 50 goal scorer. We were close with Gaudreau and Tkachuk 2 years ago, but I just wish there was more people who could get into the game and have those kinds of success stories, because there are so many kids who I know would have, if not for the cost. Yeah. And so, it's just, it's redundant at this point in terms of, I think we're just spewing on about the conversation, but in the end, big ups to Zach Hyman. Yeah. Just because you have a rich dad does not mean that you're a talented hockey player, although for a lot of NHL players it does. Yeah. And we just want to see the sport get better instead of berating players for doing well.
Yeah, like, it's just like, it just comes off as bitter. Like, I get, like, rich people bad, but, like, I really don't care. Like, again, like I was saying, like if I was mad that every player that did well had a rich family member, then I wouldn't watch hockey at all. You know what I mean? Like, if that really got on my nerves so much. And like, again, his dad's bank account has nothing to do with his on-ice performance. Like, you could be the son of Jeff Bezos, and if you can't skate, you're not going to make the league. That's how it is. If you can't play, you're not a good hockey player, you're not going to make the league. That's just how it is. So like,
and again, Hyman came up as a 4th-round pick, played his way up through the Florida system. He gets traded to the Leafs. Mike Babcock says, hey, I think we have a gem here. Gives him that elevated ice time. He develops. And before he signed that contract with the Oilers, I mean, he wasn't on I think his career high was like 20-something goals. But, man, he was a great just complimentary piece on Matthews' wing. And you talk about hard work paying off. I mean, yes. Was he given an opportunity from the start that some kids wouldn't have? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he had to work his ass off to get where he was. And that's the sign of a good person. And not to mention, the guy does a shit ton of charity work. Did it in Toronto, has done it in Edmonton. He does a lot of charity initiatives to expand the game. Yeah. Like, this is the guy you want to see score 50 goals.
Yeah, like, I would almost get it if people were this pissed off if it was like a Vander Kane hitting 50. But like, this is Zach Hyman. Does a shit ton of charity work. He's a fucking children's book author. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That's like he's talked about it in interviews before. I think like he's like, yeah, that's like his 2 main passions were like writing, and hockey. So he writes like children's book story. He has actually quite a few, and they're pretty well received.
That's really cool.
Yeah, like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's a good dude. So I just really can't understand the beef here. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
He's the exact guy you want to see succeed because he knows the position he's in. He's giving back. He knows that he's in a privileged position, but he worked his way up there. He gives back to the community. He's a great ambassador for the game. Like, there's not many guys like that you could say are better human beings in the game than him. Like, he's just the perfect guy to be an ambassador of the sport. Yeah. And you love to see it. But yeah, big ups to Zach Hyman. I hope he keeps scoring. I hope he keeps his scoring going into the playoffs. Like, if the Oilers win the cup, nothing would make me happier than a Zach Hyman Conn Smythe.
No, exactly.
That would just be poetic.
Yeah, that would be great. I would really like it. Yeah, I don't know. Not that Zach Hyman's listening, but if you are, man, don't look on Twitter. Don't listen to those fucking guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Even like,
that's just great life advice.
Yeah, I would love to be in front of the net merchant or like a McDavid merchant. Like, I would literally drop everything in my life to do that. So like,
100%.
Yeah, fuck Twitter. Don't, just in general, anyone listening to this, don't look on Twitter. You're gonna regret it. It's not worth it. But yeah, that's pretty much all we got for tonight. Thank you guys so much for listening. Yeah, unless there's anything else you wanted to discuss, my buddy Seb.
No, I'm all good. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Leave a like, heart, sub, turn on the bell, comment first if you're here. Actually, comment first. I love Zach Hyman if you made it this far, so that we know you're a real OG, and more on the way. And keep an eye out.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you for watching, and that's all we got.
See ya.
Bye.